This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Good evening. Welcome to this evening's newscast on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. Let's get to the news in detail. The government of Guyana is currently actively pursuing private investors for joint participation in gas-related projects to accompany a natural gas-fired power plant to primarily power an industrial park at the Wales Development Zone on the west bank of Demerara. The related gas ventures, such as the production of fertilizers and other associated products, are expected to be financially challenging and will require significant incentives on the part of the government, such as tax breaks and waivers, in order for any such venture to be deemed feasible. This much was disclosed to the administration following a site assessment that was conducted by Sabrok block operator ExxonMobil. In a summary of the findings that were presented to Cabinet in 2018, it was documented that ExxonMobil had progressed feasibility studies for the potential commercialization of gas volumes in the event future discoveries identify suitable gas supplies above gas-to-power requirements. In other news, major unrest erupted yesterday at Dartmouth, Essequibo, after ranks from the Special Weapons and Tactical Service Unit, or SWAT, invaded the home of an Essequibo businessman and shot him dead in his bed. The dead man was identified as 29-year-old Orrin Boston, the proprietor of Ease Mistress Bar. Boston, according to investigators, was shot dead around 4 hours 40, and yesterday Commissioner of Police Nigel Hoppy said an investigation into the shooting death of Boston by one of his ranks is in progress and that the cop who fired the bullet is under close arrest. Speaking on the matter, the top cop detailed that Boston was shot and killed during a joint operation between the SWAT unit and members of the Anti-Crime Patrol on the Essequibo coast. The commissioner added that operation was geared at unearthing prohibited items. When asked by members of the press if anything illicit was found at Boston's Dartmouth home, the commissioner said no. And moving on, collaborative efforts between law enforcement officers in Guyana and the United States resulted in the arrest and return of a man who is wanted for attempted murder committed on his wife, Sandrama Raju, also known as Roma, and Sandra, a 29-year-old technician attached to the Skeldon Public Hospital. Crime Chief Wendell Blanham said that the wanted man, Ganesh Shiocharan, was taken into police custody yesterday morning. When the suspect arrived in the U.S., he was denied entry, apprehended, and sent back to Guyana on a Caribbean Airlines flight. Shiocharan was reported to have set his wife on fire following an argument at their home in Port Morant. She was rushed to the New Amsterdam Hospital, where she is said to be in critical condition, approximately 98% burns about her body. Meanwhile, GRA has appointed the Guyana Shore Base Incorporated, owned by Monishwars Limited, along with the adjoining industrial estate leased from Guyana Realty Investments Limited, as a private warehouse and sufferance wharf. According to GRA, in a public notice published yesterday, which indicated that the appointment was done pursuant to the Customs Act. A sufferance wharf is a place other than an approved place of loading and offloading by GRA, where senior customs officer may by discretion and under certain conditions allow the loading and offloading of goods. The shore base is ExxonMobil Guyana's lone Tier 1 contractor in the country and currently is the only facility providing onshore support for oil and gas operator companies in Guyana. And moving on, the escalating cost of freight services for shipping raw materials into Guyana is beginning to take a toll on local businesses, eating away at profit margins. This much is being reported by leading domestic manufacturer Sterling Products Limited in its interim financial report for 2021. Pollard reported that expenses for the period ending June 30th was some $501.3 million, an increase of some $26.6 million over the corresponding period last year. The report by Sterling comes even as the administration earlier this year put measures in place aimed at cushioning the effects of the increased cost of shipping items into Guyana. And to wrap things up this evening, let's tell you that staff deficiency at GCAM has essentially brought the work at the Commission into a standstill. It is understood that among those vacancies that exist at GCAM is that for CEO, a deputy CEO, chief accountant, legal officer, research officer, and logistics manager. When contacted yesterday, PPPC appointed GCAM Commissioner Bibi Shadiq explained that the absence of such key personnel can see the operations of the Elections Commission grinding to a halt. She explained that the Commission has been in discussion over the issue of filling the vacancies, but the officer responsible for providing the information has been slow in responding to the requests of the Commissioners. In the interim, Shadiq emphasized that the lack of key managerial staffers such as the chief accountant can put GCAM in an embarrassing position. Added to this, Shadiq noted that the Commission's plans to host local government elections later this year may not materialize. And with that, we've come to the end of this evening's newscast. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.
I am Glenn Lal, and I have some beautiful things to share with you guys. Guyana, I have a question for you. Who goes into a business with a partner in which he gives you a limited time to verify the bills he's spending? Well, that is what ExxonMobil and the oil people doing to us. Yes, it is Raphael Trotman who signed that agreement in which Guyana has only 2 years to check and verify all expenses Exxon threw at us. When all over the world, oil countries demands no less than 5 years to do their checking, Guyana settled for 2. Guyana has gotten over 10 billion US dollar in bills so far from Lisa 1 and Lisa 2. And the 2 years already expire on us to check that. So we have to accept and pay that like an idiot, like a fool. Yes. Yes. Now, brothers and sisters, we have the third project Payara, in which another 10 billion US dollar in bills have been thrown at us to check. And the time is already running out too on this one to check. And what are we hearing from Jagdeo, the Vice President? Yes, them now trying to put together a team to check it, to verify these bills. Man, something is wrong. Something is wrong in this country. 6 years now we discover oil, and these financial gurus can't put together an audit team on to now. What a Guyana this is. What a way to run country, guys. You doing business with a partner, and he gives you 1 week to check the bills, and if you don't check it within that time, you have to accept whatever he throws at you. What is going on here in this country, guys? So if he buys a bundle bora let's say for $10,000, a tin of baby milk for $6,000, a gallon of rice for $5,000, a hammer for $25,000, or a spade for 20 grand, and you don't check it on time, you have to pay that. You hear me? You have to pay it. This is what our leaders telling this nation, guys, telling me and you. Guys, you gotta wake up. We need to wake up. We need to say something. We need to do something now and quickly before it's too late. Stop running around for 25,000 COVID money, hamper money, in which you can get $2.5 million every month by just speaking out against this highway robbery that is being committed by ExxonMobil and our backward leaders, slothful leaders we have, both of them. So if Guyana don't find a team in time, brothers and sisters, to check this other $10 billion from Payara, cat yam, all we dinner with those bills. Guys, not even a preppy student would sign terms and conditions like that in a contract. Agreeing to just 2 years for check billions upon billions of American dollars, man. Hear how much more sickening this robbing contract gets. All those expenses, those costs, let's say tallied up to $100 million a day, the oil company is allowed to take out 75% of that every day before profit is shared. So out of the $100 million, they take out $75 million, then profits is shared. So each party gets $12.5 million each. Guyana get $12.5, while they walk away with $87.5 million a day. Guys, if you're worried about what you just heard, just listen to this. Out of we $12.5 million we get, Raphael Trotman agreed in the contract that Guyana will pay Exxon taxes out of that. Yes, take out 25% taxes of that figure, Guyana leaves with barely $9 million. So ExxonMobil walks away with 91 million out of the 100, and Guyana is left to settle with 9 million. That's business. Brothers and sisters, that is business. That's what is going on every day in this land by our leaders. And every single one of them is silent. How much more can we take, man? How much? When are we going to say something? This is Glenn Lal speaking. Please, join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to talk about these types of business this country going on with. Namaste.
Kaieteur Radio.
Covering Guyana from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Kaieteur Radio.
Covering Guyana from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
It's Thursday, September 16th. We're closing in on the end of the week. I'm GHK Lal on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Welcome to the National Outlook. Government piloting several initiatives to significantly reduce suicide cases. I think that's a good thing. But you know what's a terrible thing? what I read in this story here from Kaieteur newspaper on Saturday. What I read on September 11th was that most worrisome is the fact that there have been 147 suicides in 2020. And 120 of those, what's that, almost 80%, I think? Yeah, it looks like that, being men. And 19 of those persons were in the age range of 5 to 19 years of age. We had 19 people between the ages of 5 and 19 who committed suicide last year. I mean, that's alarming. It's a startling number to begin with. And I thought that this thing was kind of, suicides was not such a national embarrassment anymore. We've had a change of government. We've got ecstasy and frenzies in this country. We've got celebration that continues to this day. Yet we're having suicides, because here's the story now from the first half of this year as released by the Ministry of Social Protection, Human Services and Social Security. Here's this. Perhaps most startling is the fact that during the first half of 2021, which is now January to June, 30 children attempted suicide, with 25 being females. So 30, that's 5 a month. 5 children a month are attempting suicide. And 30% of the children were between the ages of 15 and 19 and did not share their problems with anyone. I was sitting here, I think like you, thinking that suicide has sort of petered out. It has diminished the negligible. One suicide is one too many. That's not a cliche. It's not a throwaway line. One suicide is mean that it's a life wasted. It's somebody who has not realized their potential, somebody who got depressed and so damaged psychologically and emotionally, were so fragile, and they didn't seek help, that they fell apart. And they took what they believed was the only way out, which was to take their lives, however they took it. And I really thought we were doing better. And because of the less public cases and the numbers that were hidden behind the scenes. I mean, they get in your face when they occur, and we're startled by them, and this certainly startles me. This thing has not gone away. And I'm gratified to hear that the ministry has created a support network. I do hope that as we go into this era of so-called prosperity, anticipated prosperity, that our younger people, and it seems to be impacting the younger more, our younger people would think twice, would think more than twice, would think 4 or 5 times, wouldn't think at all about committing suicide. That comes up as an option, that they will not drive through the issues, that they will not reach out to someone, private, friendly, personal, family, outside of the family, but make sure that it's the right person. I mean, in immature minds, we end up doing the irresponsible thing. The ministry has also created this network and encourages a professional support system, seeking help. I'm really surprised at this, and I say we've got some work to do, a lot of work to do, and the sooner we get down to that, the better. This was the National Outlook. I'm GHK Lal on Kaieteur Radio, 99.1, 99.5 FM. Thank you for listening.
Hey guys, namaste. This is Wednesday and this is Glenn Lal. I am back with you guys. The eyes is useless when the mind is blind. The richer we have become materially, the poorer we become morally and spiritually. A man named Martin Luther King Jr. said that. We have learned to fly in the air like birds and swim the ocean like fishes. but we have not yet learned the simple art of living like brothers and sisters. Very well said. I want you guys to look around and see what race and party loyalty is doing to all of us in this land. Race and party loyalty has created bandits, bandit factories of white-collar criminals. Look around and look back at the last 30 years and ask yourselves what has changed from one government to another. Name a single thing that you guys can honestly say that you're proud of without massive corruption in, that any one of the two governments did for the last 30 years. A professor named Patrice Lumumba, he is the director of Kenya School of Laws, a fantastic son of this earth. I have listened to him many times speak out against what is going on in all Africa by the foreign companies, foreign nations from every corner of the rich countries on earth. This is one professor, ladies and gentlemen, who has helped shape my thoughts, my understanding and thinking of this life, of how we should go about doing things to bring about a better life for all mankind. All Guyanese, every one of you should listen to this man. He has most of the answers to not only Africa's problem, but also all the third world countries' problems, including this country we're living in, called Guyana. You guys who want to listen to this program on Facebook or on YouTube, please click on the link that we have posted online. So Josh, please play that Patrick Lumumba video and let all of Guyana listen to him carefully. It's a beautiful program. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy that.
It's a pleasure to have you in our studio, Professor Patrice Lumumba. We are privileged to have you here. Let's just go straight to this. How did you come about the name Patrice Lumumba? Does it have anything to
First
do?
of all, I'm ordinarily referred to as PLO Lumumba, which is Patrick Loch Otieno Lumumba.
Okay.
But you will remember that immediately after the independence struggle in the early days in the 1960s, 61, 62, parents who are politically aware would name their children in memory of some of the freedom fighters. And I think Patrice Emery Lumumba distinguished himself very early on. You'll find people named Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Kambarage Nyerere, and we see it even today with Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. So that is in the context in which my parents thought that Patrice Emery Lumumba deserved to be immortalized in my person.
Great. What do you think African people can do to fight against corrupt leadership?
I think Africans must recognize that bad governance is harmful to their very well-being, not only for the current generation, but generations yet to be born. This is a continent that has always had potential. These are a people that have always had potential. But since we regained our independence from the colonialists, African leaders in many countries have consistently demonstrated that they are not working in the interest of their people. And that is sad, because many of the individuals who occupied positions of leadership are still beholden to the colonial masters. We see former French colonized nations, leaders who are beholden to Paris, those who are colonized by Portugal, beholden to Lisbon, those who are colonized by Belgium, beholden to Brussels. those colonized by the United Kingdom, beholden to London, and the single country that was colonized by Spain, Equatorial Guinea, beholden to Madrid. And this is tragic. Of course, currently, many African leaders are getting beholden to Beijing, and progressively the United States of America in Washington. The net effect is that the African agenda is being sacrificed to the detriment of the peoples. And we have examples which are live as I speak. The problems in the Cameroon, the problems in Togo, the problems in South Sudan, the problem in Central African Republic, in Mali, in Mauritania. And these are sad things, and the tragic thing is that the African Union appears to be helpless in this situation. Africa has been victimized by systems of government which we do not understand and which are not serving us well. And the time is now to wake up and to begin to find African solutions to African problems. Is it doable? Yes, it is, but we must wake up from our slumber, because those who are in positions of leadership are quite comfortable with the situation as it is. We must have something in the nature of an Arab Spring. The Arab streets woke up and they told their leaders, you are going to do that which is in our best interest. Unfortunately, some of the gains made after the Arab Spring have been clawed back. And that is a lesson for us, that if you regain your independence, you must remain eternally vigilant, because the forces of reaction are very persistent.
So, Prof, you mentioned the African Union. Has the African Union become a toothless bulldog? In terms of, getting rid of corrupt and sit-tight leaders like the Zimbabwean leader, Mugabe.
You know what is amazing about the African Union, which is the immediate successor of the OAU, is that it's beginning to let Africa down. I was amazed about a month ago when Zimbabwean president, whom I respected in his early days as a freedom fighter and as a man of vision and intellect, when he went to the African Union and made a donation of $1 million, and the African Union accepted it, in a situation where the people in Zimbabwe are suffering, where there is almost 80 to 90% unemployment. And the reason why the African Union has become, as you rightly say, a toothless bulldog is because there are no leaders who are true crusaders for the agenda of the African Union in the manner that we had in the early days, when we had Nkrumah, when we had Nyerere, when we had Haile Selassie, when we had Gamal Abdel Nasser. Today, in a very perverted concept of non-interference in the affairs of other nations, and in a perverted understanding of the idea of sovereignty, people are not their brothers and sisters' keepers, so that we know that there is a festering wound in South Sudan, and we are doing nothing about it. We know there is a festering wound in the Cameroons, and we are doing nothing about it. A festering wound in Togo, and we are doing nothing about it. And even when the leaders congregate in Addis Ababa for their annual jamboree, they don't discuss these problems. Right now, I would have thought that there should be an extraordinary session of the African Union to discuss a number of things, to discuss the countries which are in trouble, and I'm mentioning them ad nauseum, to ask the question, what is the problem in the Central African Republic? How can it be resolved? What is the problem in Togo, in Gambia, in the Cameroons, and in many other countries, so that we have African solutions to African problems? Because what we'll see very shortly is that the UN will sit down and send a peacekeeping force. And when there is no peace to be kept, and they send peacekeeping forces, when, in a manner of speaking, the horse will have bolted away. So the African Union is very disappointing. When Dr. Mahamat was appointed as the chairman of the commission, I thought that this was a new person that would come with new energy to replace Nkosan and Lamini Zuma. But what I see is lethargy. What I see is lack of enthusiasm. What I see is lack of direction. What I see is continued pain. I was amazed about a month ago, if I'm not wrong, when the international community asked the African Union to nominate a country to sit in the Security Council, and they nominated the Democratic Republic of Congo. How can you possibly nominate the Democratic Republic of Congo, whose president has refused to hold election, whose country is generating refugees, whose government is controlling Kinshasa only in real terms, and where there is conflict everywhere, and where the resources are being taken away by the Chinese, the Malaysians, and the Belgians, and other rogue individuals from Europe and America, and you nominate such a person? You nominate a hyena to sit in an assembly which is judging how goats should be preserved? It is a tragedy of gigantic proportion, and we consistently do this in Africa, and we think is normal. Africa has now normalized the absurd, and we think that sense is what we do, yet it is nonsense. And unfortunately, many of us who are not in positions of influence, our younger generation particularly, think that this does not matter. This matters. If you look at the history of revolutions, it was always the young people. As early as 1908 in Turkey, it is the young people who came up to rise up against the dictatorial regime. We remember even during the Bolshevik Revolution, it was the young people. We remember during the civil rights movement led by Martin Luther King Jr. and Ralph Abernathy, among others, it was young people. In 1968 in France, when there was a problem, initially in 1958 and 1968, it was young people. We remember in Tiananmen Square, it was young people. We remember in Korea in 1908, it was the young people. In South Africa, in the Sharpeville massacre in 1969, it was the young people. In Soweto in 1976, it was the young people. In the Arab world, it's the young people. But our young people in Africa today are imprisoned by Arsenal and Manchester United and Barcelona and Real Madrid, and our young girls are imprisoned by cheap South American soap operas and Beyonce Knowles. How can that be? How can a continent be so accursed that our young people have no sense of our history, no sense of our presence, no sense of our future? No wonder the Chinese are conquering us by the day. And we are wondering. John F. Kennedy said in 1960, a society whose young men and women are in a constant state of slumber will never realize our potential. Our young people must wake up. It is only the day that they wake up that they will be able to send a clear message to those in positions of leadership that you cannot continue to misgovern us. I look forward to those days.
Let's get back to African leaders. You appear to believe in the president of Tanzania, that's John Magufuli. Our own president, President Muhammadu Buhari of Nigeria, has been considered, is being perceived as a clean leader. But you don't seem to be fond of him. Why is that?
I have mentioned President Muhammadu Buhari fondly in a number of forums, but remember that President Muhammadu Buhari came into office and has been unwell. And therefore, he is not performing at full throttle because of sickness. And you must remember that when the captain is unwell, even if there is another captain who replaces him, the ship does not move with the steadiness that it deserves. Remember that the president of the United Republic of the Federal Republic of Nigeria inherited a system that was rotten to the core. Rotten because of corruption. In fact, he campaigned and won the elections on the promise that he would fight misgovernance and corruption. And I have no doubt in my mind that those who are corrupt, when he is away and unwell in the United Kingdom, they celebrate, say, this is our turn. They fight back, so that there is a sense in which he needs support. And it's not lost on me that his Vice President Osinbajo has tried to support. But when you are in an acting capacity, there is a limit beyond which you cannot go, lest your president think that you are beginning to undermine him. I wish your president Godspeed in recovery, and also that he institutionalizes and ensures that his agenda is bought by the others. There must be a buy-in. If you look at the whole concept of religion, even if you want to give it a spiritual dimension, in the Christian religion, Christ had a message from heaven, but he sold it to 12 others, and there was a buy-in. And that buy-in is what has seen Christianity spread over a period of 2,000 years. The Prophet Muhammad had an agenda. He said he went to the mountains and he was told, Ikra, read, and he read and came back with the agenda, and he sold it. He tried to sell it in Mecca, it didn't sell very well. He went to Medina, sold it to his Sahabas, and ultimately Islam spread. In other words, what I'm trying to say, that throughout the ages, no matter how good your idea is, that idea must be sold to others, they must buy into it, and that is how you institutionalize the idea. You cannot be a lone warrior in this matter, because the children of darkness hunt like a pack of wolves, and they will devour you if you are alone.
That's serious. It's quite unfortunate. The members of the National Assembly of Nigeria actually asked you, you gave a lecture on corruption, and you gave some advice. And just like you said now, corruption seems to be fighting back, and Buhari doesn't seem to be getting the kind of support. Now, despite the lecture you gave, why has it not impacted this leadership of the National Assembly?
I think if you are looking for instant coffee solutions, you will be disappointed. In the fight against corruption, it has been demonstrated throughout the world that unless you sustain the war, and it is a war, remember that there are individuals, not only in Nigeria, but throughout the world, who suckle from the breasts of corruption. And they are not just about to win themselves off the suckling. They must be forced out of it, and they'll fight back, because there are individuals, even in government, in all sectors of government, who now take their children to school on the basis of money corruptly acquired. They live in houses that are corruptly acquired. They do everything on the basis of things that are acquired through corruption. So when you want to stop it, they are going to kill you. They are going to ensure that you are neutralized. These are the people that you are fighting against, because these are individuals whose conscience is dead, and they are going to do anything on earth to prevent you. In fact, when one chooses to fight corruption, one must remember that he or she can't be eliminated at all times. And what President Buhari, and indeed any other president in the world, must do is to recruit the population. If the population has been wedded to the idea that corruption is a bad thing, then that is the beginning of the success of that battle. When I see, for example, your former Minister for Petroleum being investigated in the United Kingdom without being a sadist, I'm very happy. Because if you look at the wealth that he is alleged to have accumulated, that is unexplained wealth. Even if she lived for 1,000 years, she would never make that kind of money. James Seabury, who was prosecuted, convicted, and served sentence in the United Kingdom. What lacks in Africa is punishment. Impunity is alive and well in Africa. And we, the electorate, as I say, times without number, are in the business of celebrating thieves. We must stop. Yesterday, Barrister Farana said it very well, that we camouflage theft by giving them nice English names: money laundering, fraud, embezzlement, and all those veneers that make them look as if it is some kind of nice game. Let us call these men and women by the right name. They are thieves, stealing on an industrial scale. They are murderers. And once we begin to call them like that, and they have a mark of Cain upon their forehead, and we shun them, has it been done in African countries? Yes, it has been done. And I keep on repeating, in countries such as Tanzania, they are being dealt with. In Rwanda, they are being dealt with. In Mauritius, they are being dealt with. In Botswana, they are being dealt with. Once you begin to deal with them, then the others who may want to behave like them will begin to take the cue. We must, in the nature of things, earn what we earn through the sweat of our brow. That is the only way in which Africa will realize their potential. Many of these individuals who are in positions of leadership in Africa don't want to leave because they are thieves. And they are scared. They are scared that if they left office, they would be prosecuted. And my view is that they should be prosecuted. You know, individuals such as Hissène Habré, who we know what he did, was it in Chad, are a good example to the leadership that impunity will not thrive. Because I've been talking to a friend of mine from the Cameroons who tells me what is happening in their country right now. And other African countries are blind to it. It doesn't even occupy the headlines of the neighboring newspapers, of the country's neighbors' newspapers. Yet the Cameroon now should be in the same position as we see the conflict in Catalan in Spain. Yet we are attacking it in page 13 in newspapers in Nigeria, in Liberia, and other countries. Time has come that Africa must learn and realize that the world is not bothered about Africa. The world is only bothered about Africa when they want to take the resources of Africa. Then they bother. They want oil, they bother. And I'm using the word bother in a very deliberate fashion, not in the traditional orthodox fashion. They bother when they want to take our timber. They bother when they want to take our bauxite, when they want to take our coke, when they want to take our uranium. But they don't bother about us. They come to our continent without disrespecting the elephant, and they want to preserve the elephant so that they can come and watch the elephant, but they don't care if 100 Africans die. They want to preserve our monkeys. They want to preserve our leopards and our other animals, but they don't care about us. To them, Africa is a zoo of sorts. And until the day that we Africans realize that we are on our own, we are going nowhere. And very soon they are going to shut us out, if they have not shut us out already. We'll not go to the United States of America, we'll not go to Europe, and I'm happy that we are being forced to stay in Africa. Let us stay in Africa and build Africa. I mean, what does Africa lack in terms of resources? What do we lack? If it is solar energy, which continent is capable of producing solar energy to light this continent and the entire earth? If it is hydroelectricity, what can we not generate? If it is minerals, if we wanted to make bombs, if we should, where do they get their uranium from? If it is timber, what don't we have? If it is human resources, we are 2 billion of us. And we are people who have intelligence. And yet we are kept in a constant state of conflict. The Europeans, the French persuading their former colonies that they are more French than they are Yoruba. They are more French than they are Wolofs and Mandinkas. The British persuading us that we are more British than we are Ibibio or Yoruba. And of course, when we find ourselves in that schizophrenic state, then we engage in internal conflict and they sell their arms to us. Tell me, which African country makes guns? None.
That's really revealing. Prof, in the context of this analysis, would you agree that corruption should be treated as a crime against humanity?
Without doubt. I've always said, and I think that this, sometimes you've got to raise things to the level of the absurd. Because what does corruption do to a country? Look at the thieving ways of Mobutu Sese Seko in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Congo has never recovered from the thieving of Mobutu and his acolytes. How many people did not have medicine in hospitals, including a hospital named after his own mother, Mama Yemo in Kinshasa? How many died? Perhaps more than in the Holocaust. How many people have died in the Cameroons in the 30 years that Paul Biya has been the president through corruption, and all that money is tucked away in Paris in France? How many people die in our roads because of potholes, because some government official took away money that ought to have been used to make good roads? So this is a crime against humanity, for which punishment should be the ultimate punishment. And in China, they do exactly that. They come to this part of the world, they corrupt our leaders, but if you are corrupt in China, they'll deal with you firmly, swiftly, and take away your life, so that you are no longer a danger to society. I believe that corruption should be a crime against humanity, because the impact of corruption in Africa in many areas, how many people are maimed because we imported polio vaccination that were not potent, so that somebody could buy a mansion in Florida or some other island in the United States of America or in the Caribbean. How many? How many of the roads here in Nigeria, how many have been involved in defense contract corruption, so that we have in a situation where we cannot have things that we ought to deserve? I mean, it has been more pernicious than any other thing. Corruption has killed more people than the civil wars combined in Africa. And yet we treat it with velvet gloves. We glamorize these individuals. We continue to elect them in office. They bribe us with 500 naira, 500 cedis, 20 kwanza, and we continue to elect them. And then they claim democracy. Look recently during the UN General Assembly in New York, what and how African leaders behave. They